Good morning. Oh, it's already morning, but good morning. Today we're gonna continue the Harry Potter reading, The Sorcerer's Stone. Yeah. I see some of you have turned pink. You have turned into the pink pineapples. Oh my. Is the volume too loud, by the way? I think the volume is a bit too loud. Yep, let's do it like that. Should be good now. Nice to see you again. Yeah, shall we start with a new chapter? We were left with chapter, hold on, when was it? 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we were at chapter 6. Yeah. We left with chapter 5, we finished, yeah, last time. And this time we're gonna start with chapter 6. Hold on, let me find that. There we go, there it is, chapter 6. Oh, let's go, shall we? Alright. Actually, hold on, I'm just gonna wait for a little bit for everyone to come here so I can hello to everyone. I'm ready to sleep. I'm in bed, get ready to sleep well. I'm ready with beer. Hey, how about you get some whiskey? By the way, guys, I forgot to tell you. Since a lot of time ago, I started a little challenge since last stream. I mean, none of you have found the I'm not gonna tell you why it is, but there's a little challenge for you guys. If you can find it, please let me know. But none of you have found it yet, so yeah, it's okay. Let's start, shall we? Chapter 6. The journey from platform 9 and the 3 quarters. Harry's last month with the Dursley wasn't fun. True, Dudley was now so scared of Harry he wouldn't stay in the same room, while Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon didn't shut Harry in his cupboard, force him to do anything, or shout at him. In fact, they didn't speak to him at all. Half terrified, half furious, they acted as though any chair with Harry in it were empty. Although this was an improvement in many ways, it did become a bit depressing after a while. Harry kept to his room with his new owl for company. He had decided to call her Hedwig, a name he had found in a history of magic. His school books were very interesting. He lay on his bed, reading late into the night, Hedwig swooping in and out of the open window as she pleased. It was lucky that Aunt Petunia didn't come into vacuum anymore, because I had kicked bringing back dead mice. Every night, before he went to sleep, Harry ticked off another day on the piece of paper he had pinned to the wall, counted down to September the 1st. On the last day of August, he thought he'd better speak to his aunt and uncle about getting to King's Cross Station the next day, so he went down to the living room, where they were watching a quiz show on television. He cleared his throat to let them know he was there, and Dudley screamed and ran from the room. Uncle Vernon? Uncle Vernon grunted to show he was listening. I need to be at King's Cross tomorrow to go to Hogwarts. Uncle Vernon grunted again. Would it be alright if you would give me a lift? Grunt. Harry supposed. Yes, thank you. It was about to get back upstairs when Uncle Vernon actually spoke. Funny way to get to a wizard school, the train. Magic carpets all got punctures, have they? Harry didn't say anything. Where is this school anyway? I don't know, said Harry, realizing this for the first time. He pulled the ticket Hagrid gave him out of his pocket. I just take the train from platform 9 and 3/4 at 11 o'clock, he read. His aunt and uncle stared. Platform what? 9 and 3/4? Don't talk rubbish, said Uncle Vernon. There is no platform 9 and 3/4. It's on my ticket. Barking, said Uncle Vernon. Howling mad, a lot of them. You see, you just wait, alright? We'll take you to King's Cross. We're going up to London tomorrow anyway, or I wouldn't bother. Why are you going to London? Harry asked, trying to keep things friendly. Taking Dudley to the hospital, growled Uncle Vernon. Got to have that ruddy tail removed before he goes to Smeltings. Harry woke at 5 o'clock the next morning and got too excited and nervous to go back to sleep. He got up and pulled on his jeans because he didn't want to walk into the station in his wizard robes. He changed on the train. He checked his Hogwarts list yet again to make sure he had everything he needed. Saw that Hagrid was shut safely in her cage, and then paced the room, waiting for Dudley to get up. 2 hours later, Harry's huge, heavy trunk had been loaded into the Dursley car. Aunt Petunia had talked Dudley into sitting next to Harry, and they had set off. They reached King's Cross at 10:30. Uncle Vernon dumped Harry's trunk onto a cart and wheeled it into the station for him. Harry thought this was strangely kind until Uncle Vernon stopped dead, facing the platform with a nasty grin on his face. Well, there you are, boy. Platform 9. Platform 10. Your platform should be somewhere in the middle. But they don't seem to have built it yet, do they? He was quiet, right, of course. There was a big plastic number 9 over one platform, and a big plastic number 10 over the next one to it. And in the middle, nothing at all. Have a good term, said Uncle Vernon with an even nastier smile. He left without another word. Harry turned and saw Dursley drive away. All three of them were laughing. Harry's mouth went rather dry. What on earth was he going to do? He was staring to attract a lot of funny looks because of Hedwig. He'd have to ask someone. He stopped at passing guard, but didn't dare mention platform 9 or 3/4. The guard had never heard of Hogwarts, and when Harry couldn't even tell me what part of the country it was in, he started to get annoyed. As though Harry was being stupid on purpose. Getting desperate, Harry asked for the train that left at 11 o'clock, but the guard said there wasn't one. In the end, the guard strolled away, muttering about time wasters. Harry was now trying hard not to panic. According to the large clock over there, the arrival board, he had 10 minutes left to get on the train to Hogwarts, and he had no idea how to do it. He was stranded in the middle of a station with a trunk he couldn't hardly lift, a pocket full of wizard modding, and a large owl. Hagrid must have forgotten to tell him something he had to do, like tapping the third brake on the left to get into Diagon Alley. He wondered if he should get out of his wand and start tapping the ticket inspector's stand between platform 9 and 10. At the moment, a group of people passed just behind me, and he caught a few words of what they were saying. Packed with muggles, of course. Harry swung around. The speaker was a plump woman who was talking to 4 boys, all with flaming red hair. Each of them was pushing a trunk like Harry's in front of him, and they had an owl. Hard hammering, Harry pushed his cart after them. They stopped, and so did he, just near enough to hear what they were saying. Now, what's the platform number? Said the boy's mother. 9 3/4, piped a small girl, also red-headed, who was holding her hand. Mom, can't I go? You're not old enough, Ginny. Now be quiet. Alright, Percy, you go first. What looked like the oldest boy marched toward the platform 9 and 10. Harry watched careful not to blink in case he missed them. But just as the boy reached the dividing barrier between the two platforms, a large crowd of tourists came swarming in front of him, and by the time the last backpack had cleared away, the boy had vanished. Fred, you're next, the plump woman said. I'm not Fred, I'm George, said the boy. Honestly, women, you can't call yourself a mother? There's a typo here. Can't you tell them, George? Sorry, George, dear. Only joking, I'm Fred, said the boy, and off he went. His twin called after him to hurry up. He must have done so because a second later he had gone. But how had he done it? Now the third brother was walking briskly towards the barrier. He was almost there, and then, quite suddenly, he wasn't anywhere. There was nothing else for it. Excuse me, Harry said to the plump woman. Hello, dear, she said. First time at Hogwarts? Ron's new too. She pointed at the last and youngest of her sons. He was tall, thin, and gangling, with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. Yes, said Harry. The thing is, I don't know how to How to get to the platform? She said kindly, and Harry nodded. Not to worry, she said. All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platform 9 and 10. Don't stop and don't be scared you'll crash into it. That's very important. Best do it in a bit of a run if you're nervous. Go on. Go now before run. Okay, said Harry. He pushed his trolley around and stared at the barrier. It looked very solid. He started to walk towards it. People jostled him on their way to platform 9 and 10. Harry walked more quickly. He was going to smash right into the barrier, and then he'd been in trouble. Leaning forward on his car, he broke into a heavy run. The barrier was coming nearer and nearer. He wouldn't be able to stop. The cart was out of control. He was a foot away. He closed his eyes, ready for the crash. It didn't come. He kept on running. He opened his eyes. A scarlet steam engine was waiting next to the platform, packed with people. A sign overhead said Hogwarts Express. 11 o'clock. Harry looked behind him and saw a rough iron archway where the barrier had been, with the words platform 9 3/4 on it. He had done it. Smoke from the engine drifted over the heads of the chattering crowds, while cats of every color would be here, and then between their legs, owls hooted to one another in a disgruntled sort of way over the babble and the scraping of heavy trunks. The first few carriages were already packed with students, some hanging out of the window to talk to their families, some fighting over seats. Harry pushed his car up down the platform in search of an empty seat. He passed a round-faced boy who was saying, "Gran, I lost my toad again." "Oh, Neville," he heard the old woman sigh. A boy with dreadlock was surrounded by a small crowd. "Give us a look, Lee. Go on." The boy lifted the lid of a box in his arm, and the people around him shrieked and yelled as something inside poked out a long, hairy leg. Harry passed on far the crowd until he found an empty compartment near the end of the train. He put Hedwig inside first, and then started to shove and... There's another typo here. And started to shove his trunk towards the train door. He tried to lift it up and steps, but couldn't have to raise one of them twice. Oh my god, why are there so many typos here? He tried to lift it up and steps, but can hardly raise one and oh my god, there's so many typos. I'm skipping this one. There's just way too many typos here. Hold on. I'm gonna skip this part. Why are there so many typos here? What the fuck? On the hand, it was one of the red-haired twins had followed through the barrier. "Yes, please," Harry panted. "Oi, Fred, come here and help." With the twins' help, Harry's trunk was at last tucked away in a corner of the compartment. "Thanks," said Harry, pushing his sweaty hair out of his eyes. "What's that?" said one of the twins suddenly, pointing at Harry's lightning scar. "Blame me," said the other twin. "Are you?" "He is," said the other twin. "Aren't you?" he added to Harry. "What?" said Harry. "Harry Potter," chorused the twins. "Oh, him," said Harry. "I mean, yes, I am." The two boys got at him, and Harry felt himself turning red. Then, to his relief, a voice came floating in through the train's open door. "Fred, George, are you there?" "Coming, Mom." We at last took Harry. The twins hopped off the train. Harry sat down next to the window here, half hidden. He could watch the red-haired family on the platform and hear what they were saying. Their mother had just taken out her handkerchief. "Ron, you got something on your nose." The youngest boy tried to jerk off away, but she grabbed him and began rubbing the end of his nose. "Mom, get off!" He wriggled free. Has Echo running out something? My god, I cannot read those things. Has Echo Ronnie got something on his nose? Okay, he's there messing with me, said one of the twins. "Shut up, Sarah." "Where's Percy?" said the mother. "He is coming now." The oldest boy came striding into sun. He had already changed into his billowing black Hogwarts robes, and Harry noticed a shiny silver badge on his chest, with the letter P on it. "Can't stay long, mother," he said. "I'm up front. The perfects have got 2 compartments to themselves." "Oh, are you What the fuck is... Okay, guys. I don't know what the fuck is happening, but there are so many typos on this one. It's just getting more and more typos. My voice is super low. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second. My voice is super low, yeah. Okay, now it should be good, hopefully. Please tell me if it's too loud. Actually, I think it is too loud. Okay, there we go. Hopefully it's gonna be good now. And I lost a sound. Why there's so many typos on this PDF? I have no idea. There's like one typo in every sentence, pretty much. Okay, hang on, I think I remember him saying something about it. Said all they're doing once, or twice, a minute, all summer. Oh, shut up, said Percy, the perfect. The fuck is a perfect? How come Percy gets new robes anyway, said one of the twins. Because he's a perfect, said Mother fondly. Alright, dear. Well, have a good time. Send me an L when you get there. She kissed Percy on the cheek and he left. Then she turned to the twins. Now you two, this year you behave yourself. If I get one more out telling me you've blown up a toilet or... Blown up a toilet? You never blown up a toilet. Great idea though, Mom. Thanks. That's not funny. And look after Ron. Don't worry. Uncle Ronnie Kings is safe with us. Shut up, said Ron again. It was almost as tall as the twins already, and his nose was still pink where his mother had rubbed it. Hey, Mom, guess what? Guess who we just met on the train? Harry leaned back quickly so they couldn't see him looking. You know the black-haired boy who was near the station? Know who he is? Who? Harry Potter. Harry heard the little girl's voice. Oh, Mom. Can I go on the train and see him, Mom? Please? You've already seen him, Ginny. And that poor boy isn't something you goggle out in the zoo. Is he really, Fred? How do you know? Ask him. Saw his car. It's really there, like lightning. Poor dear, no wonder he was alone. I wondered. He was ever so polite when he asked how to get onto the platform. Never mind then, do you think he remembers what you know who looks like? The mother suddenly became very stern. I forbid you to ask him, Fred. No, don't you dare. I thought he needs a reminder what on his first day at school. Alright, keep your hair on. A whistle sounded. A copy of Wikipedia you get? I have no idea, just a PDF from online. It's full of freaking typos, I hate it. Hurry up, the mother said. The three boys clambered onto the train. They leaned out the window for her kissed them goodbye. They leaned out the window for them kissed them good. Oh my god! For them kissed them goodbye. And the younger sister began to cry. Don't worry, Ginny. We'll send you loads of owls. We'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat. George, only joking, Mom. The train began to move. Harry saw the boys' mother waving at their sister, half laughing, half crying, running to keep up with the train until they got too much speed. Then she fell back and waved. Harry watched the girl and her mother disappear as the train rounded the corner. Houses flashed past the window. Harry felt a great leap of excitement. He didn't know what he was doing, but it had to be better than what he was leaving behind. The door of the compartment slid open, and the youngest redhead boy came in. Anyone sitting here? He asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. Everywhere is foul. Harry shook his head, and the boy sat down. He glanced at Harry and then looked quickly out of the window, pretending he hadn't looked. So Harry saw. Oh my god. I'm almost halfway at giving up. I am always halfway at giving up. Every 3 sentences there's a typo. Harry saw he still had. Okay. Harry saw oh my god. Harry saw he still had a black mark on his nose. Okay, I'm like working overtime here. I'm halfway at giving up. This book is full of typos. What the fuck? Hey Ron, the things were back. Listen, we're going down the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there. Right, mumbled Ron. Harry, said one of the other twin. Do we introduce ourselves? Fred and George Weasley, and this is Ron, our brother. See you later then. Bye, said Harry and Ron. The twins slid the compartment door shut behind them. Are you really Harry Potter? Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. Oh, well, I thought it might be one of the I thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes, said Ron. Have you really got, He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his bangs to show the lightning scar. Ron stared. So that's where you know who... Yes, said Harry, but I can't remember it. Nothing? Said Ron eagerly. Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else. Whoa, said Ron. He sat and stared at Harry for a few moments. Then, as thought he had suddenly realized what he was doing, he looked quickly out of the window again. Are all your family wizards? Asked Harry, who found Ron just as interesting as Ron found him. Yes, I think so, said Ron. I think Mom's got a second cousin who's an accountant, but we never talk about him. So you must know lots of magic already. The Weasleys were clearly one of those old wizarding families the playboy in Diagon Alley had talked about. I heard you went to live with Muggles, said Ron. What are they like? Horrible. Well, not all of them. My aunt and uncle and cousin are, though. Wish I'd have 3 wizard brothers. 5, said Ron. For some reason, he was looking gloomy. I'm the 6th in our family to go to Hogwarts. You could say I've got a lot to live up to. Bill and Charlie had already left. Bill was head boy and Charlie was captain of Quidditch. Now Percy is a perfect. Fred and George mess around a lot, but they still get really good marks, and everyone thinks they're really funny. Everyone expects me to do as well as the others, but if I do, it's not a big deal, because they did it first. You never get anything new either, with 5 brothers. I got Bill's older robe, Charlie's older wand, and Percy's old rat. Ron reached inside his jacket and pulled out a fat grey rat, which was asleep. His name is Scabbers, and he's useless. He hardly ever wakes up. Percy got a now from my dad for being played a perfect, but they couldn't afford. Got Scabbers instead. I got Scabbers instead. Ron's ears went pink. He seemed to think he'd said too much because he went back to staring out of the window. Harry didn't think there was anything wrong with not being able to afford an owl. After all, he never had any money in his life until a month ago. He told Ron so. All about having to wear Dudley's old clothes and never getting proper birthday presents. This seems to cheer Ron up. Until Hagrid told me I didn't know anything about being... another typo. Being. I need to find who read this one. This is such a pain. I don't know anything about being a wizard or about my parents or Voldemort. Ron gasped. What? Said Harry. You said you know whose name, said Ron, sounding both shocked and impressed. I have thought you, of all people. I'm not trying to be brave or anything, said Harry. I said I never knew you shouldn't. See what I mean? I got loads to learn, I bet, he added, voicing for the first time something that he had been worrying him a lot lately. I bet I'm the worst in the class. You won't be. There's a lot of people who come from Muggles family and they learn quick enough. The BGM, wow. I don't even hear the freaking BGM. Hold on. There we go. One day had been talking the train that carried them out of London. Now they were speeding past fields full of cow. I then tried to type crows or cows. I'm just gonna be cows. Past field full of cows and sheep. They were quiet for a time, watching the fields and lanes flick past. Around 12:30, there was a great clattering outside the corridor, and a smiling, dimpled woman slipped back the door and said, "Anything off the car, dears?" Harry, who hadn't planned any breakfast, leaped to his feet, but Ron's ears went pink again, and he muttered that he'd brought sandwiches. Harry went out of the corridor. He had never had any more money for candy with the Dursley, and now that he had pockets rattling with gold and silver, he was ready to buy as many Mars bars as he could carry. But the woman didn't have Mars bar. What she did get was petty pots, every flavor of beans, Dordle's best blowing gums, chocolate frogs, pumpkin pasties, cauldron cakes, licorice wand, and a number of other strange things Harry had never seen in his life. Not wanting to miss anything, he got some of everything and paid the woman 11 silver sickles and 7 bronze nuts. Ron stared at Harry, put it all back in the compartment and tipped it onto an empty seat. "Hungry, are you?" "Starving," said Harry, taking a large bite out of pumpkin pasty. Ron had taken a lumpy package and rubbed it. There were 4 sandwiches inside them. He pulled one of them apart and said, "You always forget I don't like corned beef." I'm curious, what's corned beef? Give me a second. Corned beef. Oh my god. You ungrateful kid. You don't like corned beef? Jesus, that thing looks good. Oh well. Swap you for one of these, said Harry, holding up a pasty. Go on. You don't want this. It's all dry, said Ron. She hasn't got much time, he added quickly. You know, with 5 of us. Go on, have a pasty, said Harry. He had never had anything to share before, or, indeed, anyone to share it with. It was a nice feeling, sitting there with Ron, eating their way through all Harry's pasties, cakes, and candies. The sandwiches lay forgotten. What are these? Harry asked Ron, holding up a pack of chocolate frogs. They're not really frogs, are they? He was staring to feel that nothing will surprise him. No, said Ron. But see what the card is. I'm missing a gripper. What? Oh, of course you don't know. Chocolate frogs have cards inside them, you know, to collect famous witches and wizards. I got about 500, but I haven't got a gripper or a Ptolemy. Oh my god, I cannot. Give me a second. Ptolemy. I'm just gonna call it Ptolemy. Harry unpropped his chocolate frog and picked up the card. It showed a man's face. He wore half-moon glasses, had a long crooked nose, and flowing silver hair, beard and mustache. Underneath the picture was the name Albus Dumbledore. So this is Dumbledore, said Harry. Don't tell me you never heard of Dumbledore, said Ron. Can I have a frog? I might get a gripper. Thanks. Harry turned over his card and read, Albus Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts. Considered by many the greatest wizard of modern times, Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard, Grindelwald, in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel. Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and tamping bowling. Harry turned the card back over and saw, to his astonishment, that Dumbledore's face had disappeared. He's gone. Well, you can't expect him to hang around all day, said Ron. We'll be back. No, I got Morgana again. I got about 6 of them there. Do you want it? You can start collecting. Ron's eyes stayed to the pile of chocolate frogs waiting to be unwrapped. Help yourself, said Harry. But in, the Muggle world, people just stay put on feathers, do they? What, they don't move at all? Ron sounded amazed. Weird. Harry saw Dumbledore's side. I hate this one. Dumbledore slid back into the picture in his card and gave him a small smile. Ron was more interested in eating the frogs than looking at the famous witches and wizards cards, but Harry couldn't keep his eyes off them. Soon he had not only Dumbledore and Morgana, but Hengist of Woodcroft, Alberic Grunewald, Seisha, Paracelsus, and Merlin. He finally tore his eye away from the druidess Cleodna, who was scratching her nose to open a bag of Birdie's Bot's every flavor's beans. You want to be careful with those, Ron warned Harry. When they say every flavor, they mean every flavor. You get all the ordinary ones like chocolate and peppermint and marmalade, but you can get spinach and liver and tripe. George reckons he had a booger flavor one once. Ron picked up a green bean, looked at it carefully, and bit it into a corner. Blah! See? Sprouts. They had a good time eating the every flavor bean. Harry got toast, coconut, big bean, strawberry, curry, grass, coffee, sardine, and was even brave enough to nibble the end of the funny grey one Ron wouldn't touch, which turned out to be pepper. The countryside now flying past the window was becoming wilder. The neat fields had gone. Now there were woods, twisting rivers, and dark green hills. There was a knock on the wood. The knock on the door, and their compartment and the red round-faced boy Harry had passed on platform 9 3/4 came in. He looked tearful. "Sorry," he said, "but have you seen a toad at all?" When they shook their head, he wailed, "I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me." "He'll turn up," said Harry. "Yes," said the boy miserably. "Well, if you see him," he laughed. "Don't know why he's so bothered," said Ron. "If I brought a toad, I'd lose it as quick as I could. Mind you, I brought Scabbers, so I can't talk." The rat was still snoozing on Ron's lap. "He might have died and you wouldn't know the difference," said Ron in disgust. "I tried to turn him yellow yesterday to make him more interesting, but the spell didn't work. I'll show you. Look." Hermione jumped around in his trunk and pulled out a very better-looking wand. It was chipped in places and something white was gleaming at the end. Unicorn hair is nearly poking out. Anyway, he had just raised his wand when the compartment doors slid open again. The toadless boy was back. But this time, he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her new Hogwarts robe. "Has anyone seen a toad? Neville lost one," she said. She had a bossy sort of voice, lots of bushy brown hairs, and round front teeth. "We've already told him we haven't seen it," said Ron, but the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand in his hand. "Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see it then." She sat down. Ron looked taken back. Alright." He cleared his spell. Sunshine, Daisy, Buttermellow turned this stupid fat rat yellow. I'm cringing. He waved his hand, but nothing happened. Scabbers stayed grey and fat asleep. "Are you sure that's a real spell?" said the girl. "Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice, and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family is magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter. But I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is. I've learned all of Curse's books by heart. Of course, I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?" She said all this very fast. I don't read it that fast at all. Harry looked at Ron and was relieved to see his stunned face that he hadn't learned at all Cursed books by heart either. "I'm Ron Weasley," Ron muttered. "Harry Potter." "Are you really?" said Hermione. "I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizard and everything. So shut up, girl." "Am I?" said Harry, funny days. "Goodness, did you know? Have found out everything I couldn't fit in." I don't want to read Hermione's part. She sounds so annoying. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around. I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, we'd better go and look for Neville's toad. You two had a better chance. You know, I expect we'll be there soon. And she left, taking the toadless boys with her. "Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it," said Ron. He threw his wand back into his trunk. "Stupid spell. George gave it to me, but he knew it was a bad." "What house are your orders in?" asked Harry. "Gryffindor," said Ron. Gloom seemed to be settling up again. Mom and Dad were in it too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I don't suppose Ravenclaw would be too bad, but imagine if they put me in Slytherins. "That's a house full. I mean, you know who was in?" "Yeah," said Ron. He flopped back into his seat, looking depressed. "You know, I think the ends of Scabbers' whiskers are a bit lighter," said Harry, trying to take Ron's mind off houses. "So what do you oldest brother do now that they've left anyway?" Collin's eyes going like a cat. Bossy indeed. It's not even bossy, it's just annoying. I know it's all little annoying little kid. I know I said little twice, cause she is little. You know, I think the end of the okay, yeah, but you read that? Harry was wondering what a wizard did once he'd finished school. Charlie is in Romania studying dragons, and Bill's in Africa doing something for Gringotts, said Ron. Did you hear about Gringotts? It's been all over the Daily Prophet. But I don't suppose you get wild with the muggles. Someone tried to rob a high security vault. Really, Star? Really? What happened to them? Nothing. That's why it's such a big news. They haven't been caught. My dad said it must have been a powerful dark wizard to get around Gringotts, but they don't think they took anything. That's what's odd. Of course, everyone gets scared when something like this happens in case you know who's behind it. Harry turned this new over into his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time you know who was mentioned. I suppose this was all part of entering the magical world, but it had been a lot more comfortable saying Voldemort without worrying. What's your Quidditch team? Ron asked. I don't know any, Harry confessed. What? Ron looked dumbfounded. Oh, you wait. It's the best game in the world. And he was off, explaining all about the 4 balls in the position and the 7 players describing famous games he'd been with his brother. And then broomstick he'd like to get if he had them. Oh god, another typo. And the broomstick he'd like to get if he had the money, yes? He was just taking Harry through the finer points of the game when the compartment door slid open again. But it wasn't Neville, the toddler's boy, or Hermione Granger's son. 3 boys entered, and Harry recognized the middle one at once. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. He was looking at Harry with a lot more interest than he'd shown back in Diagon Alley. Is it true? He said. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter is in his compartment, so it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry. He was looking at the other boys. Both of them were thickest and looked extremely mean. Standing under either side of the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards. Oh, this is Scrabble and this is Goyle, said the pale boy carelessly, noticing when Harry was looking. And my name is Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. Ron gave us like half, which might have been hiding a snigget. Draco Malfoy looked at her. Think my name is funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell who the wrong sort of my friends, thanks, he said coldly. Draco Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared on his pale cheeks. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter, he said slowly. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. You hang around with riff-raff like the Weasley and the Hagrid, and I'll rub off on you. Both Harry and Ron stood up. Say that again, Ron said, his face as red as his hair. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Unless you get out now, said Harry, more bravely than he felt, because Scrabble and Goyle were a lot bigger than him and Ron. But we don't feel like living, do we, boys? We've all eaten all of the food, and you still seem to have some. Goyle reached towards the chocolate frog's neck to Ron. Ron leaped forward, but before he so much as touched Goyle, Goyle let out a horrible yell. Skipper the rat was hanging off his fingers, sharp little teeth sunk deep into Goyle's knuckles. Crabble and Malfoy backed away as Goyle's mug swung Scabbers around and round, howling, and when Scabbers finally flew off and hit the window, all 3 of them disappeared at once. Perhaps they thought there were more rats lurking among the sweets. Or perhaps they heard footsteps, because a second later, Hermione Granger had come in. What's been going on? She said, linking out all the sweets all over the floor and Ron picking up Scabbers by his tail. I think he'd been knocked out, Ron said to Harry. He looked closer at Scabbers. No, I don't believe it. He's gone back to sleep. And so he had. You've met Malfoy before? Harry explained about their meeting in Diagon Alley. I've heard of his family, said Ron darkly. They were some of the first to come back to our side of a you-know-who disappeared. Say they've been bewitched. My dad doesn't believe it. He said Malfoy's father didn't need an excuse to go over there to the dark side. He turned to Hermione. Can we help you with something? You better hurry up and put your robes on. I've just been up to the front to ask the conductor, and he says we're nearly there. You haven't been fighting, have you? You'll be in trouble before we even get there. Scabbers has been fighting, not us, said Ron, scowling at her. Would you mind leaving while we change? Alright, I only came here because people outside are behaving very childishly. Racing up and down the corridors, said Hermione in a sniffing voice. You've got dirt on your nose, by the way, did you know? Ron glared at her as she left. Harry peered out the window. It was getting dark. He could see mountains and forests under a deep purple sky. The train did seem to be slowing down. He and Ron took off their jackets and pulled on their long black robes. Ron's were a bit short for him. He could see his sneakers underneath them. A voice echoed through the train. We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggages on the train. It will be taken to the school separately. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and Ron, he saw, looked pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of the sweets and joined the crowd thronging the corridors. The train slowly ran down and finally stopped. People pushed their way towards the door, and out on it, a tiny dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp came bopping over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice. First year, over there. All right there, Harry. Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. Come on, follow me. I'm on first years. Mind your step now. First year, follow me. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a steep, narrow path. It was so dark on either side of them, Harry thought there must be a thick trees there. Nobody spoke much. Neville, the boy who kept losing his toad, sniffed once or twice. You'll get the first sight of Hogwarts in a sec, Hagrid called over his shoulder, just round this bend there. There was a loud "oh." The narrow path had opened suddenly onto the edge of the of a great black cake, perched atop a high mountain on the other side. Its windows sparkling in the starry sky was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more than 4 to boat, Hagrid called, pointing to the fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were followed in their boat by Neville and Hermione. Everyone in, shouted Hagrid, who had a boat to himself. Right then, forward! And the fleet of little boats moved out all at once, gliding across the lake, which was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, staring up at the great castle overhead. It towered over them as they sailed nearer and nearer to the cliff on which it stood. Heads on, yelled Hagrid as the first boat reached the cliff. They all bent their heads, and the little boats carried them through a curtain of ivy that hid a wide opening in the cliff face. They were carried along a dark tunnel, which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle, until they reached a kind of underground harbor, where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. "Hey, you there! Is this your toad?" said Hagrid, who was checking the boats as people climbed out of them. "Trevor!" cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hand. Then they clambered up past the grace in the rock after Hagrid's lamp, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up flat stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. "Everyone here? You there, still got your toad?" Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. That's it? That's ended. I don't know what's happening, okay. It's so much worse than last time. I mean, last time there were a couple of mistypes, of typos. But this time it's full of them, Jesus. Alright guys, give me a second. Let me drink some water. It is full of typos. Line away, you voice hungry. Well, I'm glad that today's voice is good. I abandoned the stream for 10 minutes but already feeling sleep. Oh my god, thank you JL for the 10 membership. Thank you so much. Okay, by the way, chapter 7. Hopefully there won't be as many typos on chapter 7. Chapter 6 was painful to read actually. There were so many typos. Alright, let's keep on going. Chapter 7. The Sorting Hat. I'm enjoying and relax. Ah, I'm glad you're relaxing. The door swung open at once, a tall black-haired witch in emerald green robe stood there. She had a very stern face, and Harry's first thought was that this was not someone to cross. "The first year, Professor Mcgonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid, I will take them from here." She pulled the door wide. The entrance hall was so big you could have fit the whole of the Dursley doors in it. The stone walls were lit with flaming torches like the ones at Gringotts. The ceiling was too high to make out, and a magnificent marble staircase facing them led to the upper floors. They followed Professor Mcgonagall across the flat stone floor. Harry could hear the drone of hundreds of voices from a doorway to the right. The rest of the school must have already been here. But Professor Mcgonagall showed the first year into a small, empty chamber of the hall. They crowded in, standing rather closer together. They would have usually have been, peering about nervously. "Welcome to Hogwarts," said Professor Mcgonagall. "The start of a term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses. The sorting is a very important ceremony because while you are here, your house will be something like your family within Hogwarts. You will have classes with the rest of your house, sleep in your house dormitory, and spend free time in your house common room. The 4 houses are called Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherins. Each house has its own noble history, and each has produced outstanding witches and wizards. While you are at Hogwarts, your triumph will earn your house points, while any rule breaking will lose house points. At the end of the year, the house with the most points is awarded a house cup, a great honor. I hope each of you will be a credit to whichever house you become yours. The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school. I suggest you all smarten yourself up as much as you can while you are waiting." Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fastened under his left ear, and on Ron's smudged nose. Harry nervously tried to flatten his hair. "I shall return when we are ready for you," said Professor Mcgonagall. "Please wait quietly." She left the chamber. Harry swallowed. "How exactly do they sort out into houses?" he asked Ron. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry's heart gave a horrible jolt. A test in front of the whole school? But he didn't know any magic yet. What on earth would they have to do? He hadn't expected something like this the moment they arrived. He looked around anxiously and saw that everyone else looked terrified too. No one was talking much except Hermione Granger, who was whispering very fast about all the spells she learned and wondered which one she needed. She's such an annoying little shit. Harry tried hard not to listen to her. He'd never been more nervous, never, not even when he had to take a school report home to the Dursleys and say that he'd somehow turned his teacher wig blue. He kept his eye fixed on the door. Any second now, Professor Mcgonagall would come back and lead him to his doom. Then something happened that made him jump out of the foot in the air. Several people behind me screamed, "What the?" he gasped. So did the people around him. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall, pearly white and slightly transparent. They glided across the room, talking to one another and hardly glancing at the first years. They seemed to be arguing. What looked like a fat little monk was saying, "Forgive and forget, I say, we ought to give him a second chance." "My dear Fred, haven't we given Peeves all the chance he deserved? He gave us all a bad name, you know. He's not really even a ghost." I said, what are you doing out here? A ghost wearing a ruff and tie has suddenly notified the first year. Nobody answered. New student, said the fat friar, smiling around at them. About to be sorted, I suppose. A few people nodded mutely. Hope to see you in Hufflepuff, said the friar. My old house, you know. Move along now, said the sharp boy. The sorting ceremony is about to start. Professor Mcgonagall had returned. One by one, the ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. Now, form a line, Professor Mcgonagall told the first year, and follow me. Feeling oddly as though his leg had turned to the land, Harry got into the line behind a boy with sandy hair. We ran behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the great hall. Harry had never ever imagined such a strange and splendid place. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles that were floating in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. The tables were laid with glittering gold plates and goblets. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers were sitting. Professor Mcgonagall led the first year up here, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Dotted here and there among the students, the ghosts shone misty silver. Mainly to avoid all the staring eyes, Harry looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard. Hermione whispered. He heard. I'm so confused. Okay. Hermione whispered, it's bewitched to look like sky outside. I heard about it in Hogwarts, a history. It was hard to believe there was a ceiling there at all. Another great hall didn't simply open up to the heavens. Hold on, give me a second. Sorry guys, give me a second, someone's calling me. Ok. Sì, va benissimo, sì, no, aspetta, fammi vedere. No, settimana prossima, sì, settimana prossima, martedì va benissimo. No, aspetta, a che ora? A che ora? No, il pomeriggio non posso, pomeriggio devo... sì, il pomeriggio sono qua, sì. Dopo le 6? Sì, possiamo fare dopo le 6, sì. Ok, quindi martedì dopo le 6. Ok, perfetto, ok. Allora ci sentiamo lì, ok. Perfetto, grazie. Buona giornata, ciao. Oh shit, I forgot to mute myself. Sorry, I forgot to mute myself. Okay, I received a call, somebody called me. I was responding to a phone call, I forgot to mute myself. I forgot to mute myself, shit. Oh, it's okay. It should be fine. It should be fine. Well, let's continue. Good evening, welcome. I don't know, maybe one day I'll find some Italian, I'll stream with them. I'm gonna stream in Italian, you guys want me to stream in Italian? Okay, I lost where I was. Give me a second. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you missed a phone call. Harry quickly looked down again. Professor Mcgonagall silently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool, she put a pointed wizard hand. This head was patched and frayed and extremely dirty, and Petunia wouldn't have let it in the house. Maybe they had to try and get a rabbit out of it, Harry thought wildly. That seemed the sort of things. Noticing that everyone in the hall was now staring at the hand, he stared at it too. For a few seconds there was complete silence. Then the hand twitched. A rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter heart than me. You can keep your brows black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts sorting hat, and I can cup them all. There's nothing hidden in your head the sorting hat can see, so try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong to Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. The daring nerve and chivalry set Gryffindor apart. You might belong to Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Just patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Or yet and wise old Ravenclaw, if you read mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherins you'll make your real friends. Those cunning foes use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I am a thinking cap. The whole hall burst into applause as the hat finished its song. It bowed to each of the four's table and then became quiet still again. So we just go and try on the hat, Ron whispered to Harry. I'll kill Fred, he was going on about resting at all. Harry smiled weakly. Yes, trying on the hat was a lot better than having to do a spell, but he did wish they could have tried on without everyone watching. The hat seemed to be asking rather a lot. Harry didn't feel brave or quick-witted or any of it at the moment. If only the hat had mentioned a house for people who felt a bit queasy. That would have been the one for him. Professor Mcgonagall now stepped forward, holding a long roll of parchment. When I can call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted, she said. About Hannah? A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled out of the line, put on the hat, which ran down over her eyes, and sat down. A moment's pause. Hufflepuff, shouted the hat. The table on the right shook and clapped as Hannah went to sit down at the Hufflepuff table. Harry saw the girls at the fat fire waving merrily at her. Bon, Suzanne. Hufflepuff, shouted the hat again, and Suzanne scuttled off to the seat next to Hannah. Boot, Terry, Ravenclaw. The table shaken from the left clap this time. Several Ravenclaws stood up to shake hands with Terry as he joined them. Brockhurst Mandy went to Ravenclaws too. But Brown Lavender became the first new Gryffindor, and the table on the far left exploded with cheers. Harry could see Ron's twin brother catcalling. Bulstrode Millicent became a Slytherin. Perhaps it was Harry's imagination, after all he'd heard about Slytherin, but he thought they looked like a pleasant lot. He was starting to feel definitely sick now. He remembered being picked to teams during gym at his old school. He had always been last to be chosen, not because he was no good, but because no one wanted Dudley to think they liked him. Finch, Fletchley, Justin, Hufflepuff. Sometimes Harry noticed the hat shut out of the house at once, but others it took a little while to decide. Finnegan Seamus, the sandy-haired boy next to Harry in line, sat on the stool for almost a whole minute before they had declared him a Gryffindor. Granger Hermione. Hermione almost ran to the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her hat. Gryffindor, shouted her hat. Wrong groom. A horrible thought struck Harry, as horrible thoughts always do when you're very nervous. What if it wasn't chosen at all? What if it just sat there with the hat over his eyes for ages, until Professor jerked it off his head and said there had obviously been a mistake, and he'd better get back on the train. When Neville Longbottom, the boy who kept losing his tail, was called, he fell over on his way to the stool. The hat took a long time to decide with Neville. When he finally shouted, Gryffindor, Neville ran off, still wearing it. I had to jog back amid gales and laughter to give it back to oh my god, freaking typos. To give it back. Mcgonagall Morag. Malfoy swaggered forward. when his name was called and got his wish at once. The head had barely touched his head when he screamed, "Slytherin!" Malfoy went to join his friend Crabbe and Goyle, looking pleased with himself. There weren't many people left now. Moon, Nott, Parkinson, then a pair of twins girls, Patil and Patil, then Parks, Sully, and then at last, Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers suddenly broke out like little hissing fires all over the house. Potter, did he say? The Harry Potter? The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was a hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Next second, he was looking at the black inside of the hat. He waited. Said a small voice in his hand. Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. Just talent. Oh my goodness, yes. And a nice face to prove yourself. Now that's interesting. So where shall I put you? Harry gripped the edge of the stool and thought, not slithering, eh? Said the small boy. Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head, and slithering will help you on the way to greatness. No doubt about that, no? Well, if you're sure, better be a Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily towards the Gryffindor table. He was so relieved to have been chosen and not put in Slytherin. He hardly noticed that he was getting the loudest cheer yet. Percy the prefect got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" Harry sat down opposite the ghost in the rough he'd been seeing earlier. Ghost patted his arm, giving Harry that sudden horrible feeling he just plunged it into a bucket of ice-cold water. He could see the high table properly now. At the end nearest him sat Hagrid, who caught his eye and gave him the thumbs up. Harry grinned back, and there in the center of the high table, in a large gold chair, sat Albus Dumbledore. Harry recognized him at once from the car he had gotten out of the chocolate frogs on the train. Dumbledore's silver hair was the only thing in the whole hall that shone as brightly as a ghost. Harry spotted Professor Quirtle, too, the nervous young man from the leaky cauldron. He was looking very particular in a large turban. And now there were only 3 people left to be sorted: Thomas, Dean, and a black boy even taller than Ron joined Harry at the Gryffindor table. Turpin Lisa became a Ravenclaw. Then it was Ron's turn. He was pale green by now. Harry crossed his fingers under the table, and a second later he had shouted, "Gryffindor!" Harry clapped loudly with the rest as Ron collapsed into the chair next to him. "Well done, Ron, excellent," said Percy Weasley, pompously across Harry as Zambini Blaze was made a Slytherin. Okay. Professor Mcgonagall rolled up her skull and took the sorting hat away. Harry looked down at his empty gold plate. He only just realized how hungry he was. The pumping pieces seemed ages ago. Albus Dumbledore had gotten to his feet. He was beaming at his students, his arms open wide, and as if nothing could have pleased him more than to see them all there. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words. And there are. Nitwit, Blabber, Oddment, Tweak. Thank you." He sat down. Everyone clapped and cheered. Harry didn't know where to laugh or not. "Is he a bit mad?" he asked Percy uncertainly. "Man," said Percy early. "He's a genius, best wizard in the world. But he is a bit mad, yes. Potatoes, Harry?" Harry's mouth fell open. The dishes in front of him were now piled with food. He had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table: roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops and lamb chops, sausages, bacon and steak, boiled potatoes, roasted potato fries, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and for some strange reason, peppermint humbugs. The Dursley had never exactly starved Harry, but he'd never been allowed to eat as much as he liked. Dudley had always taken anything that Harry really wanted, even if it made him sick. Harry piled his plate with a bit of everything except the peppermints and began to eat. It was all delicious. "That does look good," said the ghost in the rough sadly, watching Harry cup up his steak. "Can't you?" "I haven't eaten for nearly 400 years, said the ghost. "I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced... Oh my god, no typo. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas the Mimsy Porpington at your service. Resident Ghost of Gryffindor Tower." Yeah, I'm hungry too. I'm getting hungry too. "I know who you are," said Ron suddenly. "My brother told me about you. You're nearly headless Nick." "I would prefer it if you called me Sir Nicholas the Mismy," the ghost began stiffly, but sandy-haired Seamus Finnegan interrupted. "Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless?" Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed, as if their little chat wasn't going at all the way he wanted. "Like this," he said irritably. He seized his left ear and pulled. His whole hair swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulder as if it was on a hinge. Someone had obviously tried to behead him, but not done it properly. Something pleased at the sun look on their face. Nearly headless Nick flipped his head back onto his neck, coughed and said, "So, new Gryffindors, I hope you're going to help us win the house champion this year. Gryffindors have never gone so long without winning. Slytherin had got the cup 6 years in a row. The bloody barons become almost unbearable. He's the Slytherin ghost." Harry looked over at the Slytherin table and saw a horrible ghost sitting there, with blank staring eyes, a gowned face, and robes stained with silver blood. It was right next to Malfoy, who, Harry was pleased to see, didn't look too pleased with the scene arrangement. "How did he get covered in blood?" asked Seamus with great interest. "I never asked," said nearly headless Nick delicately. When everyone had eaten as much as they could, the remains of the food faded from the plates, leaving them sparkling clean as before. A moment later the desserts appeared. Blocks of ice cream in every flavor you could think of. Apple pies, treacle tart, chocolate earkins, and junk donuts. Tried strawberry, jello, rice pudding. As Harry helped his hand to treacle tart, the talk turned to their families. "I'm half and half," said Seamus. "My dad's a Muggle. My mom didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock for him." The other laughed. "What about you, Neville?" said Ron. "Well, my gran brought me up and she's a witch," said Neville. "But the family thought I was a Muggle for ages. My great-uncle Archie kept trying to catch me off guard and force some magic out of me. He pushed me off the end of a Blackpool pier once. I nearly drowned. But nothing happened until I was 8. Great Uncle Archie came round for dinner, and he was hanging me out of all upstairs window by the uncles when the great auntie and niece offered him a merry good, and he accidentally let go. But I bounced all the way down the garden and into the road. They were all really pleased. Gran was crying. She was so happy, and you should have seen their faces when I got in there. I thought I might not be magic enough to come. You see, great Uncle Algie was so pleased. It bought me my toad." On Harry's side, Percy, Weasley, and Hermione were talking about lessons. "I do hope they start right away. There's so much to learn. I'm particularly interested in transfiguration, turning something into something else. Of course, it's supposed to be very difficult. Your girl will be starting small, just matching into needle and that sort of things." Harry, who was starting to feel warm and sleepy, looked up at the high table again. Hagrid was drinking deeply from his goblet. Professor Mcgonagall was talking to Professor Dumbledore. Professor Quirrell, in his absurd turban, was talking to a teacher with greasy black hair and hooked nose, and sallow skin. Sallow? I have no idea what sallow is. It happened very sudden. The hook-nosed teacher looked past Quirrell's turban, straight into Harry's eye, and a sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. "Ouch!" Harry clapped a hand on his head. "What is it?" asked Percy. nothing. The pain had gone as quick as it had come. Harder to shake off was the feeling Harry had gotten from the teacher's look, a feeling that he didn't like Harry at all. "Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell?" he asked Percy. "Oh, you know Quirrell already, do you? Now wonder he's looking out so nervously. That's Professor Snape. He teaches potions, but he doesn't want to. Everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape." Harry watched Snape for a while, but Snape didn't look at him again. At last, the third two disappeared, and Professor Dumbledore got to his feet again. The hall fell silent. Just a few more words, now that we're all fed and watered. I have a few start-of-term notice to give you. First, you should know that the force on the ground is forbidden to all pupils, and you of our older students would do well to remember that as well. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in the direction of the Weasley twin. Have also been asked by Mr. Filch, Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. Quidditch trial will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house team should contact Madame Hooch. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. Harry laughed, but he was one of the few who did. "He's not serious," he muttered to Percy. "Must be," said Percy, frowning at Dumbledore. "It's odd, because he usually gives us a reason why we're not allowed to go somewhere. The forest full of dangerous beasts, everyone knows that. I do think he might have told us Prefects at least, okay, good." Oh god, I hate it. "And now, before we go to bed, let us sing the school song," cried Dumbledore. Harry noticed that the other teacher's smiles had become rather fixed. Dumbledore gave his wand a little flick as if he was trying to get a fly off the end, and a long golden ribbon flew out of it, which rose high above the table and twisted itself snake-like into words. Everyone picked their favorite tune, and said Dumbledore, "Off we go." And the school blown. "Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy-Warty Hogwarts, teach us something, please." Where we were old and bald or young with scabby knees, our hands could do with filling with something interesting stuff, for now they're bare and full of air, dead flies and bits of fluff, to teach a thing worth knowing. Bring back what we forgot, just do your best, we'll do the rest, and learn until our brains all rot. That is so bad. That is such a bad. That is so bad. What the fuck? What's happening in chat? What you guys saying? No, guys, the problem is like the book I have like is full of typo. So if I stop in the middle of the way, it's because of that. Because my brain needs to like understand what the fuck is happening. I finished a couple of others. Music, he said, wiping his tear. A magic beyond all we do here. And now, bedtime, off you trot. The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the clattering crowds, out of the great hall, and up the marble staircase. Harry's legs were like lead again, only because he was so tired and full of food. He was too sleepy even to be surprised that the people in front porches along the corridor whispered and pointed as they passed, or that twice Percy led them through doorways hidden behind sliding panels and hanging tapestries. They climbed most staircases, yawning and dragging their feet, and Harry was just wondering how much farther they had to go when they came to a sudden halt. A bundle of walking sticks was floating in mid-air ahead of them. Sorry, and as Harry took a step towards them, they started throwing themselves at him. "Peeves!" Percy whispered to the first year. "A poltergeist!" He raised his voice. "Peeves, show yourself!" A loud, rude sound, like the air being let out of a balloon, answered. "Do you want me to go to the bloody Baron?" There was a pop, and a little man twickled. Dark eyes and wide mouth appear, floating across leg in the air, clutching the walking stick. Oh, he said with an evil cackle. It calls first years, what a fun! He swooped suddenly at them. They all duck. Go away, Peeves. All the Baron hell about us. I mean it, barked Percy. Peeves stuck out his tongue and vanished, dropping the walking stick on Neville's head. They heard him zooming away, rattling codes and armor as he passed. You want to watch out for Peeves, said Percy, as they set off again. The bloody Baron's the only one who can control him. He won't even listen to us perfect. Here we are. At the very end of the corridor hung a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. Password, she said. Caput Draconis, said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it. Neville needed a leg up, and found himself in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to the dormitory, and the boys through another. At the top of the spiral staircase, they were obviously in one of the towers. They found their beds at last, 4 posters hung with deep red velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Great food, is it? Ron muttered to Harry, for the hangings. Get off, Scabbers. He's chewing my sheets. Harry was going to ask Ron if he had any of the charcoal tart, but he fell asleep almost at once. Perhaps Harry had eaten a bit too much, because he had a very strange dream. He was wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, telling him he must transfer to Slytherin at once, because it was his destiny. Harry told the turban he didn't want to be in Slytherin. It got heavier and heavier. He tried to pull it out, but it tightened painfully. And there was Malfoy laughing at him as he struggled with it. Then Malfoy turned into a hook-nosed teacher, Snape, whose laugh became high and cold. There was a burst of green light, and Harry woke, sweating and shaking. He rolled over and fell asleep again, and when he woke up the next day, he didn't remember the dream at all. And the chapter is done. Guys. That wasn't. What do you mean $5? Wow. Today we're taking much longer than last time. Today we're taking much longer than last time. We only read 2 chapters in an hour. Last time we read almost like 3 in 1 hour. Yeah, remember to drink water. Okay, hold on, give me a second. I need to grab some water. Be right back. Be right back. Give me a second. Actually, I'm going to the toilet too. I'm gonna take you guys with me. I'm gonna grab some water and I'm gonna go to the toilet. Yeah, I'm gonna grab you guys with me. Taking the phone. Man, I'm hungry. Okay. So, what chapter are we at now? Shit, I lost it. Oh, there we go. Chapter 8. And just drink water. Yeah, I just drink water. So, chapter 8. Shall we continue? Let's continue. Chapter 8. The Potion Master. There, look. Where? Next to the tall kid with the red hair, wearing the glasses. Did you see his face? Did you see his scar? Whispers followed Harry from the moment he left his dormitory to the next day. People lining up outside classrooms stood on tiptoe to get a look at him, or doubled back to pass him in the corridors again, staring. Harry wished they wouldn't, because he was trying to concentrate on finding his way to classes. There were 142 staircases at Hogwarts, wide sweep ones, narrow rickety ones, some that led somewhere different on a Friday day, some with a vanishing step halfway up that you had to remember to jump. Then there were the doors that you wouldn't open unless you asked politely. Sorry, it's the water coming up back up. I'll tickle them in exactly the right place, and doors that weren't really doors at all, but solid walls just pretending. It was also very hard to remember where what anything was, because it all seemed to move around a lot. The people in the portraits kept going to visit each other, and Harry was sure the coats of armor could walk. Ghosts didn't help either. It was always a nasty shock when one of them glided suddenly through a door you were trying to open. Nearly Headless Nick was always happy to point new Gryffindors in the right direction, but Peeves and Poltergeists was worth to look though, and a strict staircase if you met them when you were late for class. He would drop waste paper basket on your head, pull rugs from under your feet, pelt your wish bits of chalk, you'd sneak up behind you, invisible, grab your nose, and screech, "Got your conch!" Even worse than Peeves, if that was possible, was the caretaker, Argus Filch. Harry and Ron managed to get on the wrong side of him on their very first morning. Filch found them trying to force a way through a door that unluckily turned out to be the entrance of the out-of-bounds corridor on the 3rd floor. He wouldn't believe they were lost, was sure they were trying to break into it on purpose, and was threatening to lock them in the dungeons where they were rescued by Professor Quirrell, who was passing. Filch owned a cat called Mrs. Norris, a scrawny, dust-colored creature with bulging lamp-like eyes just like Filch's. She patrolled the corridors alone, break a rule in front of her, put just one toe out of the line, and she whisked off for Filch, who'd appear wheezing 2 seconds later. Filch knew the secret passageway of the school better than anyone, except perhaps the Weasley twins, and could pop up as easily as any of the ghosts. The students all hated him, and it was the dearest ambition of many to give Mrs. Norris a good kick. And then once you had managed to find them, there were the classes themselves. There was a lot more to magic, as Harry quickly found out, than waving your hand and saying a few funny words. They had to study the night sky through their telescope every Wednesday at midnight and learn the names of different stars and the movements of the planets. 3 times a week they went out to the greenhouse behind this castle to study herbology with a dumpy little witch called Professor Sprout, where they learned how to take care of all strange plants and fungi, and found out that they were useful. Easily the most boring class was History of Magic, which was the only one taught by ghosts. Professor Binns had been very old. Indeed, when he had fallen asleep in front of the staff room fire and got up next morning to teach, leaving his body behind. Binns droned on and on while they scribbled down names and dates, and got Amatic the Evil and Ulrich and Oddball mixed up. Professor Flitwick The charms teacher was a tiny little wizard who had to stand on a pile of books to see over his decks. At the start of the first class, he took the roll call, and when he reached Harry's name, he gave an excited squeak and toppled out of sight. Professor Mcgonagall was again different. Harry had been quite right to think she was a teacher to cross. Strict and clever, she gave them a talking to. The moment they sat down in her first class. Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts, she said. Anyone messing up in my class will have a not come back. You have been warned. Then she changed her desk into a pig and back again. They were all very impressed. I couldn't wait to get started, but soon realized they weren't going to be changing the furniture into animals for a long time. After taking a lot of complicated notes, they were each given a match and started trying to turn it into a needle. By the end of the lesson, only Hermione and Granger had made any difference to her match. Professor Mcgonagall showed the class how it had gone all silver and pointy, and gave Hermione a rare smile. The class everyone had really been looking forward to was Defense Against the Dark Arts, but Quirrell's lesson turned out to be a bit of a joke. His class smelled strongly of garlic, which everyone said was a ward of a vampire he'd met in Romania. I was afraid they would be coming back to get him one of these days. His turban, he told them, had been given to him by an African prince as a thank you for getting rid of the troublesome zombie. But they weren't sure they believed the story. For one thing, when Seamus Finnegan asked eagerly to hear how Quirrell had fought off the zombie, Quirrell went pink and started talking about the weather. For another, they had noticed that a funny smell hung around the turban, and when Weasley twins insisted that it was stuffed full of garlic as well, so that Quirrell was protected wherever he went. Harry was very relieved to find out that he wasn't miles behind everyone else. Lots of people had come from Muggle families and, like him, hadn't had any idea that they were witches and wizards. There was so much to learn that even people like Ron didn't have much to hear. Friday was an important day for Harry and Ron. They finally managed to find their way down to the Great Hall for breakfast without getting lost once. "What have you got today?" Harry asked Ron as he poured sugar on his porridge. "Double potion with the Slytherins," said Ron. "Snape's head of the Slytherin house. They say he always favors them. We'll be able to see if it's true." "Wish Mcgonagall favored us," said Harry. Professor Mcgonagall was head of Gryffindor house, but it hadn't stopped her from giving them a huge pile of homework the day before. Just then the mail arrived. Harry had gotten used to this by now. But it had given him a bit of a shock on the first morning, when about 100 owls had suddenly streamed into the Great Hall during breakfast, circling the tables until they saw their owners, and dropping letters and packages onto their laps. Hedwig hadn't brought Harry anything so far. She sometimes find to nibble his ear and have a bit of a toast before going off to sleep in the Overly. With the older school owls, this morning, however, she fluttered down between the marmalade and the sugar bowl and dropped a note onto Harry's plate. Harry tore it open at once. It said, in a very untidy scrawl, "Dear Harry, I know you get Friday afternoon off, so would you like to come and have a cup of tea with me around 3? I want to hear all about your first week. Send an answer back with Hedwig, Hagrid." Harry borrowed Ron's quill, scribbled, "Yes, please. See you later" on the back of the note, and sent Hedwig off again. It was lucky that Harry had tea with Hagrid to look forward to, because the potion lessons turned out to be the worst thing that had happened to him so far. At the start of the term banquet, Harry had gotten the idea that Professor Snape disliked them. By the end of the first potion lesson, he knew he'd been wrong. Snape didn't dislike Harry, he hated him. Potion lesson took place down in one of the dungeons. It was colder here than in the Iron Castle, and would have been quite creepy enough without the pickled animals floating in glass jars all around the walls. Snape, like Flitwick, started the class by taking the roll call, and like Flitwick, he paused at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "Harry Potter, our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friend Crabble and Goyle sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up the cast. His eyes were black like Hagrid's, but they had none of Hagrid's warmth. They were cold and empty, and made you think of dark tunnels. You are here to learn the subtle science and extract art of potion making, he began. He spoke in barely more than a whisper, but they caught every word. Like Professor Mcgonagall, Snape had caught every word. Oh my god, what the fuck is happening here? Like Professor McGonagall, Snape have the gift of keeping. Okay, got it. Like Professor McGonagall, Snape had the gift of keeping a class silent without effort, as there is a little foolish one waving here. Many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmery cauldron with its simmery fumes, the delicate power of fluids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, ensnaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stop death, if you aren't as big bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach. More silence followed his little speech. Harry and Ron exchanged looks with raised eyebrows. Hermione and Granger was on the edge of her seat and looked desperate to start proving that she wasn't a dunderhead. Potter, said Snape suddenly. What will I get if I add a powder root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Powder root of what to an infusion of what? Harry glanced around, who looked as stunned as he was. Hermione had shot into the air. I don't know. Why there are so many typos? I don't know, sir, said Harry. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. Toot toot. Fame clearly isn't everything, in your Hermione's tone. Let's try again, Potter. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar? Hermione stretched her hand as high into the air as it would go without her leaving her seat. But Harry didn't have the faintest idea what a bezoar was. He tried not to look at Malfoy, Crabble, and Goyle, who were shaking with laughter. I don't know, sir. Thought you wouldn't open a book Thought you would open a book before coming, eh, Potter? Harry forced himself to keep looking straight into Hal's cold eyes. He had looked through his book at the Dursley, but did Snape expect him to remember everything in 1,000 magic herbs and fungi? Snape was still ignoring Hermione's quivering hand. What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane? At this, Hermione stood up, her hands stretching towards the dungeon ceiling. And no, said Harry quietly. I think Hermione does, though. Why don't you try her? A few people laughed. Harry caught Seamus' eyes and Seamus winked. Snape, however, was not pleased. Sit down, he snapped at Hermione. For your information, Potter, asphodel and wormwood make a sleeping potion so powerful it is known as the Draught of Living Death. A bezoar is a stone taken from the stomach of a goat and will save you from most poisons. As for monkswood and wolfsbane, they are the same plant, which also goes by the name of aconite. Well, weren't you all copying down? There was a thunder rummaging for Quill's compartment over the noise Snape sang, and a point will be taken off from Gryffindor House for your check, Potter. Things didn't improve for the Gryffindors as the potion lesson continued. Snape put them all into pairs and set them to mixing up a simple potion to cure boils. He swept around in his black coat, watching them weigh dried nettles and crush snake fangs, criticizing almost everyone except Malfoy, who him seemed to like. He was just telling everyone to look at the perfect Malfoy had stewed his front slugs when clouds of acid, green smoke, and loud hissing filled the dungeon. Neville had somehow managed to melt Seamus' cauldron into a twisted blob, and the potion was seeping across the stone floor, burning holes in people's shoes. Within seconds, the whole class was standing on their stools when Neville, who had been drenched in the potion when the cauldron collapsed, moaned in pain as angry red boils sprang up all over his arms and legs. "Idiot boy," snarled Snape, cleaning the spilled potion with one wave of his wand. "I suppose you added the porcupine quill before taking the cauldron off the fire?" They were whispered as boys started to pop out all over his name. Take me to the hospital wing. Snape spat at Seamus, then he rounded on Harry and Ron, who had been working next to Neville. You, Potter, why did you tell me not to add the quills? Thought he'd make you look good if it goes wrong, did you? That's a 9 point you've lost for Gryffindor. This was so unfair that Harry opened his mouth to argue, but Ron kicked him behind the cauldron. Don't push it, he muttered. I've heard Snape can turn very nasty. As he climbed the oh my god, I can't read, oh my god. Oh my god, are we reading Harry Potter? Hey, Toasty, yes, we are reading Harry Potter, and oh my god, this PDF is full of freaking typos. And plus, my eyes burning is not helping. As he climbed the step out of the dungeon an hour later, Harry's mind was racing and his spirits were low. He lost 2 points for Gryffindor in his very first week. Why did Snape hate him so much? Cheer up, said Ron. Snape's always taking points off Fred and George. Can I come and meet Hagrid with you? At 5 to 3 they left the castle and made their way across the grounds. Hagrid lived in a small wooden house on the edge of the forbidden forest. A crossbow and a pair of galoshes. I have no idea how to pronounce this word. Galoshes were outside the front door. When Harry knocked, they heard a frantic scrabbling from inside and several booming barks. Then Hagrid's voice rang out, saying, "Back, Fang, back!" Hagrid's big, hairy face appeared in the crack as he pulled the door open. "Hang on," he said. "Back, Fang!" He led them in, struggling to get a hold of the collar on an enormous black boarhound. There was only one room inside. Hams and pheasants were hanging from the ceiling. A copper kettle was boiling on the open fire, and in the corner stood a massive bed with a patchwork quilt over it. "Make yourself at home," said Hagrid, letting go of Fang, who bounded straight at Ron and started licking his ears. Like Hagrid, Fang was clearly not as fierce as he looked. "This is Ron," Harry told Hagrid, who was pouring boiling water into a large teapot and putting raw cakes onto a plate. Rock cakes. That sounds very interesting. Rock cakes. "Another Weasley, eh?" said Hagrid, glancing at Ron's freckles. "I spent half of my life chasing your twin brothers away from the forest." The rock cakes were shapeless lumps with raisins that almost broke their teeth, but Harry and Ron pretended to be enjoying them as they told Hagrid all about their first lesson. Fang rested his head on Harry's knees and drew all of his robes. Harry and Ron were delighted to hear Hagrid call Filch that old git. "And as fair as Captain Mr. Norris, I like to introduce her for Fang sometimes, you know. Every time I go up to school, she follows me everywhere. Can't get rid of her. Filch puts her up to it." Harry told Hagrid about Snape's lesson. Hagrid, like Ron, told Harry not to worry about it. Now Snape oh my god. That Snape liked hardly any of the students. Hardly. Liked. It's not S. Why did I put S? Another typo. "But he seems to really hate me." "Rubbish," said Hagrid. "Why would he?" Yet Harry couldn't help thinking that Hagrid didn't quite meet his eyes when he said that. "How's your brother, Charlie?" Hagrid asked Ron. "I like him a lot, great with animals." Harry wondered if Hagrid had changed the subject on purpose, while Ron told Hagrid all about Charlie's work with dragons. Harry picked up a piece of paper that was lying on the table under the tea cozy. It was a cutting from the Daily Prophet. Gringotts break-in, latest. Investigation continued into the break-in at Gringotts on 31st July, widely believed to be the work of dark wizards or witches unknown. Gringotts Goblin today insisted that nothing had been taken. The vault that was searched had in fact been emptied the same day. "But we're not telling you what was in there, so keep your nose out of it if you know what's good for you," said the Gringotts Spokesgoblin this afternoon. Harry remembered Ron telling him on the train that someone had tried to rob Gringotts, but Ron hadn't mentioned the date. "Hagrid," said Harry, "that Gringotts break-in happened on my birthday. It might have been happening while we were there." There was no doubt about it. Hagrid definitely didn't meet Harry's eyes this time. He grunted and offered him another rock cake. Harry read the story again. The vault was searched had in fact been empty earlier the same day. Hagrid had emptied Vault 713. If you could call it emptying, taking out the grabby little package, had that been that the thieves were looking for? As Harry and Ron walked back to the castle for dinner, another typo. Their pockets weighed down with raw cakes. They'd been too polite to refuse. Harry thought that none of the lesson he had so far had given him as much to think about as tea with Hagrid. Had Hagrid collected the packages this time? Where was it now? And did Hagrid know something about Snape that he didn't want to tell Harry? And wow, that chapter was fast. That chapter was very short. And now we are at chapter 9. Okay. Last chapter for today, alright guys? I'm hungry. I wanna eat. I'm getting hungry. Chapter 9. The Midnight Duel. Harry had never believed he would meet a boy he hated more than Dudley. But that was before he made Draco Malfoy. Still, first year Gryffindors only had potion with a slivering, so they didn't have to put up with Malfoy much. Or at least they didn't until they spotted a notice pinned up in the Gryffindor common room that made them all groan. Flying Wrestle will be starting on Thursday, and Gryffindor and Slytherin will be learning together. I will never read the Chinese version. I cannot read Chinese. There's no way I can read Chinese. It's gonna be sound so bad. I'm already barely reading in English. There's no way I can read Chinese. I'm sorry. Typical, said Harry darkly. Just what I always wanted. To make a fool of myself on a broomstick in front of Malfoy. I've been looking forward to learning to fly more than anything else. You don't know what you make a fool of yourself, said Ron reasonably. Anyway, I know Malfoy is always going on about how good he is at Quidditch, but I bet he's all talk. Malfoy sure don't... They type Malfoy. They messed up the name. It's like, it's not even written Malfoy, it's written Malfoy. I'm gonna screenshot it. I'm gonna screenshot this shit so you guys can see how much pain I am feeling right now reading all of this. There's like the unholy amount of typos there are here. What the fuck? Yes. Okay, I just sent it on Twitter. You guys can see it. Like, it's full of fucking typos. Who the fuck is Malfoy? I know it's a typo, but come on now. Malfoy Center didn't talk about flying a lot. He complained loudly about first year never getting on the house Quidditch team and too long boasting story that always seemed to end with him narrowing escaping muggles in helicopters. He wasn't the only one though. The way Seamus Finnegan told it, had spent most of his childhood zooming around the countryside on his broomstick. Even Ron would tell anyone who'd listen about the time he almost hit that hang glider on Charlie's old broom. Everyone from wizarding families talk about Quidditch constantly. Ron had already had a big argument with Dean Thomas, who shared the dormitory about soccer. Ron couldn't see what was exciting about a game with only one ball where no one was allowed to fly. Harry had caught Ron prodding Dean's poster of West Ham's soccer team, trying to make the players move. Neville had never been on a broomstick in his life before, because his grandmother had never let him near one. Privately, Harry felt she'd had good reasons, because Neville managed to have an extraordinary number of accidents, even with both feet on the ground. No, don't worry, he'll change that again. No. I can't read it. The problem is I can't read it. Hermione Granger was almost as nervous about flying as Neville was. There was something you couldn't learn by heart out of a book. Not that she hadn't tried. And because on Thursday she bored them all stupid with flying tips, she got them out of a library book called Quidditch Through the Ages. Neville was hanging on her very words, desperate for anything that might help him hang on his broomstick later. But everyone else was very pleased when Hermione's lecture was interrupted by the arrival of the mail. Harry hadn't had a single letter since Hagrid knew, something that Malfoy had been quick to notice. Of course, Malfoy's eagle owls had always bring him packages of sweets from home, which he opened gloatingly at the slivering table. A barn owl brought Neville a small package from his grandmother. He opened it excitedly and showed him a glass ball the size of a large marble, which seemed to be full of white smoke. "It's a ramen brawl," he explained. "God knows I forget this. This tells you if there's something you've forgotten to do. Look, you hold it tight like this, and if it turns around..." Oh, his face fell because his remember ball had something glowed scarlet. "You forgot something." Neville was trying to remember what he had forgotten when Draco Malfoy, who was passing the Gryffindor table, snatched a remember ball off of his hand. Harry and Ron jumped to their feet. They were half hoping for a reason to fight Malfoy, but Professor Mcgonagall, who could spot trouble quicker than any teacher in the school, was there in a flash. "What's going on?" "Malfoy's got my remember ball, Professor." Scowling, Malfoy quickly dropped the remember ball back to the table. "Just looking," he said, and he slipped away with Crabble and Goyle behind him. At 33, after... Thank you, Pachamaru, for the 5 membership gift. At 33 that afternoon, Harry and Ron, the other Gryffindor, hurried down the front steps onto the ground for the first flying lesson. It was a clear, breezy day, and the grass stripped under their feet as they marched down the sloppy lawns over the smooth, flat lawn on the opposite side of the ground to the Forbidden Forest, whose trees were swaying darkly in the distance. Why is the background music so epic? What the fuck? The Slytherins were already here, and so were 20 brooms neat in line on the ground. Harry had heard Fred and George Weasley complaining about the school brooms, saying that some of them started to vibrate if you flew too high, or always flew slightly to the left. Their teacher, Madame Hooch, arrived. She had short grey hair and yellow eyes like a hawk. "Well, what are you waiting for?" she barked. "Everyone stand by your broomstick. Come on, hurry up!" Harry glanced down at his broom. It was old and some of the twigs stuck out at odd angles. "Stick up your right arms over your broom," called Madame Hooch at the front, "and say up! Up!" Everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, but was one of the few that hid. And Mcgonagall had simply rolled over on the ground, and Neville's hadn't moved at all. The house brooms, like horses, could tell when you were afraid. Tell Harry. There was a quaver in Neville's voice that said only too clear that he wanted to keep his feet on the ground. "Thank you for the membership, Madame Hooch." Then showed them how to mount their brooms without sliding off the end, and walk up and down the rows correcting their grips. Harry and Ron were delighted when she told Malfoy he'd been doing it wrong for years. "Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the grounds. Hard," said the Madame Hooch. "Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2, but Neville, nervous and jumpy and frightened of being left on the ground, pushed off hard before the whistle had touched Madame Hooch's lips. "Come on back, boy," she shouted, but Neville was rising straight up like a cork shot out of the bottle. 12 feet, 20 feet. Harry saw his scared white face, looked down the ground, falling away, saw his gas slip away off the broom, and wham! A thud and a nasty crack on Neville's lay face down on the grass in a heap. His broomstick was still rising higher and higher, and started to drift lazily towards the Forbidden Forest and out of sight. Madame Hooch was bending over Neville, her face as white as his. "Broken wrist," Harry heard her mutter. "Come on, boy, it's alright. Up you get." She turned to the rest of the class. "None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wig. You leave those brooms where they are, and you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say Quidditch. Come on, dear." Neville, his face tear-streaking, clutching his wrist, hobbled off with Madame Hooch, who had her arm around him. No sooner were they out of earshot than Malfoy burst into laughter. To see his face, the great lump. The others living joined in. Shut up, Malfoy, snapped Parvite Patil. Oh, sticking up for Longbottom, said Pansy Parkinson, a hard-faced Liveringer. Never thought you like a fat little crybaby, Parvati. Look, said Malfoy, darting forward and snatching something out of the grass. It's a stupid thing Longbottom's grandson him. Then remember, bro, getting in the sun as he held it up. Give it there, Malfoy, said Harry quietly. Everyone stopped talking to watch. Malfoy smiled nastily. I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find. How about up a tree? Give it there, Harry yelled, but Malfoy had leaped onto his broomstick and taken off. And then being lying, he could fly well. Hovering level with the plumstone branching on oak, he called, "Come and get it, Potter!" Harry grabbed his spoon. "No," shouted Hermione Granger. "Madame Hooch told us not to move. You'll get all of us in trouble." Harry ignored her. Blood was pounding in his ears. He mounted the broom and kicked hard against the ground and up the sore air. What? Holy shit, what are so many? What's happening with that? Welcome, Emma. Poor Neville. Poor fat kid. How about reading the very hungry Carabella? Oh no. When being finished, John could do without being out. This was easy and this was wonderful. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher, and heard scream and gasp of girls back on the ground and a merry whoops from Ron. He turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in midair. Malfoy looked stunned. "Give it here," Harry asked. "I'll knock you off the broom." "Oh yeah?" said Malfoy, trying to sneer, but looking worried. Oh shit, I lost. Okay, there we go. Harry knew somehow what to do. He leaned forward and grasped the broom tightly in both hands, and he shot towards Malfoy like a javelin. Malfoy only just got out of the way in time. Harry made a sharp about face and held the broom steady. A few people below were clapping. "No, Crabble and Goy up here to save your neck, Malfoy," Harry called. The same thought seemed to have struck Malfoy. "Catch if you can, then," he shouted, and then threw the glass ball high into the air and struck back towards the ground. Harry saw, as far in slow motion, the ball rise up in the air and then start to fall. He leaned forward and pointed his broom handle down. Next second, he was gathering speed in a steep dive, racing the ball. Wind whistled in his ear, mingled with the screams of people watching. He stretched out his hand a foot from the ground and he caught it, just in time to pull his broom straight up. And he toppled gently onto the grass with a remember ball clutched safely in his feet. "Harry Potter!" His heart sank faster than he just dived. Professor Mcgonagall was running towards him. He got to his feet, trembling. Never in all my times at Hogwarts, Professor Mcgonagall was almost speechless with shock, and her glasses flashed fiercely. "How dare you! I have broken your neck!" "It wasn't my fault, Professor." "Be quiet, Miss Patil." "But Malfoy, that's enough. Miss Weasley, Potter, follow me now." Harry called outside of Malfoy, Crabble and got a triumphant face as he left, walking numbly in Professor Mcgonagall's wake as he strode towards the castle. It was going to be expelled, he just knew it. He wanted to say something to defend himself, but there seemed to be something wrong with his voice. Professor Mcgonagall was sweeping along without even looking at him. He had to jog to keep up. Now he'd done it. He hadn't even lasted 2 weeks. He'd be packing his bags in 10 minutes. What would the Dursleys say when he returned up to the doorstep? Out the front stairs, up the marble staircase inside, and still Professor Mcgonagall didn't say a word to him. She rushed open the door and marched along corridors with Harry trotting miserably behind her. Maybe she was taking him to Dumbledore. Sorry. He felt ever Hagrid, expelled but allowed to stay on as gamekeeper. Perhaps he could be Hagrid's assistant. His stomach twisted as he imagined watching Ron and the others becoming wizards, while he stomped around the grounds carrying Hagrid's bag. Professor Mcgonagall stopped outside the classroom. She opened the door and poked her head inside. "Excuse me, Professor Flitwick, could I borrow you wood for a moment?" Wood? Thought Harry, bewildered. Was wood a cane she was going to use on him? but Wood turned out to be a person, a barely fifth year boy who came out of Flitwickle's class looking confused. "Follow me, you two," said Professor Mcgonagall, and then marched up to the corridor, Wood looking curiously at Harry. In here, Professor McGonagall pointed them into a classroom that was empty except for Peeves, who was busy writing rude words on the backboard. "Out, Peeves!" she barked. Peeves threw the chalk into a bin, which clanged loudly, and he swooped out cursing. Professor McGonagall slammed the door behind him and turned to face the two boys. "Potter, this is Oliver Wood. Wood, I found you a seeker." Wood's expression changed from puzzlement to delight. "Are you serious, Professor?" "Absolutely," said Professor McGonagall crisply. "The boy's a natural. I've never seen anything like this. Was that your first time on a broomstick, Potter?" Harry nodded silently. He didn't have a clue what was going on, but he didn't seem to be being expelled, and some of the feelings started coming back to his leg. "He caught that thing in his hand after a 50-foot dive," Professor McGonagall told Wood. "Didn't even scratch him. Charlie Weasley could have done it." Wood was now looking as thought all his dreams had come true at once. "Ever seen a game of Quidditch, Potter?" he asked excitedly. "Wood's captain of the Gryffindor team," Professor McGonagall explained. "He's just a build for a seeker too," said Wood, now walking around Harry and staring at him. "Light, speedy. We'll have to get him a decent broom, Professor. A Nimbus 2000 or Clean Sweep 7, let's say. I'll just speak to Professor Dumbledore and see if we can ban the first year rule. Heavens knows, we need a better team than last year. Flattening our last match by slivering, I couldn't look Severus Snape in the face for weeks." Professor McGonagall peered sternly over her glass at Harry. "I want to hear your training harder, Potter. I may change your mind about punishing you." Then she suddenly smiled. "Your father would have been proud," she said. "He was an excellent Quidditch player himself." "You're joking." It was dinner time. Harry had just finished telling Ron what had happened when he'd left the grounds with Professor McGonagall. Ron had a piece of steak and kidney pie halfway on his mouth, but I had forgotten all about it. "Seeker?" he said. "But first years never—" "You must be the youngest house player in about a century," said Harry, shoveling pie into his mouth. Said Ron. Oh my god. He felt particularly hungry after the excitement of the afternoon. Wood told me. Ron was so amazed, so impressed. He just sat and gaped at Harry. "I start training next week," said Harry. "Only don't tell anyone. Wood wants to keep it a secret." Fred and George now came into the hall, spotted Harry and hurried over. "Well done," said George in a low voice. "Wood told us we're on the team too. Beaters." "I tell you, we're going to win the Quidditch Cup for sure this year," said Fred. "We haven't won since Charlie left, but this year's team is going to be brilliant. It must be good, Harry." Wood was almost skipping when he told us. "Anyway, we got to go. Lee Jordan reckons he's found a new secret passage out of the school. Bet it's that one behind the statue of Gregory or Gregory the Smarmy that we found in our first week. See you." Fred and George had hardly disappeared when someone far less welcome turned up. Malfoy, flanked by Crabble and Goyle. "Having a last meal, Potter? When you're getting the train back to Muggles? You're a lot braver now that you're back on the ground and you've got your little friends with you," said Harry coldly. There was of course nothing at all about Crabbe and Goyle, but as the high table was full of teachers, neither of them could do more than crack their knuckles and squirrel. "I take you on any time on my own," said Malfoy. "Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Once only. Non-contact." "What's the matter? Never heard of Wizard's duel before, I suppose?" "Of course he has," said Ron, wheeling around. "I'm his second. Who's yours?" Malfoy looked at the Crabble and Goyle, sizing them up. "Crabbles," he said. "Midnight, all right? We'll meet you in the trophy room." That's always looked. When Malfoy had gone, Ron and Harry looked at each other. "What is a wizard duel?" said Harry. "And what do you mean you're my second?" "Well, a second is there to take over if you die," said Ron casually. Getting started at last on his cold pie. Catching the look on Harry's face, he added quickly, "But people only die in proper duels, you know, with real wizards. The most of you and Malfoy be able to do is send sparks at each other. Neither of you know enough magic to do any real damage. I bet he expects you to refuse anyway. And what if I wave my hand, nothing happens? Throw it anyway and punch him on the nose, Ron suggested. Excuse me. They both looked up. It was Hermione's class. I cannot read. They both looked up. It was Hermione Granger. Can the person eat in peace in this place? Said Ron. Hermione ignored him and spoke to Harry. I couldn't help overhearing what you and Malfoy were saying. Bet you could, Ron muttered. And you mustn't go wandering around the school at night. Think of the points you lose for Gryffindor if you're caught. And you're bound to be. It's really very selfish of you. It's really none of your business, said Harry. Goodbye, said Ron. All the time, it wasn't what you'd call the perfect end of the day, Harry thought. She lay awake much later listening to Dean and Seamus falling asleep. Neville wasn't back from the hospital wing. Ron had spent all evening giving him advice such as, if he tries to curse you, you better dodge it, because I can't remember how to block them. There was a very good chance they were going to get caught by Filch or Mr. Norris, and Harry felt he was pushing his luck, breaking another school rule today. On the other hand, Malfoy's sneering face kept looming out of the darkness. This was his big chance to be Malfoy face to face. He couldn't miss it. 11:30. Ron muttered at last, "We'd better go." They pulled on the bathrobes, picked up their wands, and crept across the tower room, down the spiral staircase into the Gryffindor common door. A few embers were... okay, never mind. I thought somebody was going to call me again, but no. A few embers were still glowing in the fireplace, turning all the armchairs into hunchback shadows. They had almost reached a portrait hall when a voice spoke from the chair nearest them. "I can't believe you're going to do this, Harry." A lamp flickered on. It was Hermione Granger, wearing a pink bathrobe and frown. "You," said Ron furious, "go back to bed." "I almost told your brother," Hermione snapped. "Percy, he's a prefect. He put a stop to this." Harry couldn't believe anyone could be so interfering. "Come on," he said to Ron. He pushed open the portrait of the fat lady and climbed through the hall. Hermione wasn't going to give up that easily. She followed Ron through the portrait hole, hissing at them like an angry goose. "Don't you care about Gryffindor? Do you only care about yourself? I don't want Steven to win the House Cup, and you lose all the points I got from Professor Mcgonagall for knowing about switching spell. Go away." "Alright, but I want you just remember what I said when you're on the train home tomorrow. You're so..." But what they were? They didn't find out. But what they were? Oh, but what they were, they wouldn't find out. Hermione had turned to the portrait of the fat lady to get back inside, and found herself facing an empty painting. The fat lady had gone on nighttime visit, and Hermione was locked out of Gryffindor Tower. "Now what am I supposed to do?" she asked shrilly. "That's your problem," said Ron. "We got to go. We're three going to be late." We three are... We're going to be late, okay. Why is there a number 3 here? They hadn't even reached the end of the corridor when Hermione caught up with them. "I'm coming with you," she said. "You are not. Don't you think I'm going to stand out here and wait for Phil to catch me? If he finds all 3 of us, I'll tell him the truth, that I was trying to stop you and you can back me up." Okay. There's so many typos again. Okay. "Do you think I'm going to stand out here and wait for Phil to catch me? If he finds all 3 of us, I'll tell him the truth, that I was trying to stop you and you can back me up." Okay, nice. "Now, good night, Dan." "Got some nerves," said Ron loudly. "Shut up, both of you," said Harry sharply. "I heard something." It was a sort of snuffling. "Mr. Norris?" breathed Ron, squinting through the dark. It wasn't Mr. Norris, it was Neville. He was curled up on the floor, fast asleep, but jerked suddenly awake as they crept nearer. "Thank goodness you found me. I've been out here for hours. I couldn't remember the new password to get into a band." "Keep your voice down, Neville. The password's pig snout, but it won't help you now. The fat lady's gone off somewhere." "How's your arm?" said Harry. "Fine," said Neville, showing them. "Madame Prophet mended it in about a minute." "Good." Look, Neville, we got to be somewhere. We'll see you later. Don't leave me, said Neville, jumping to his feet. I don't want to stay here alone. The bloody Baron's been passed twice already. Ron looked at his watch and then glared furious at Hermione and Neville. If either of you get us caught, I'll never rest until I've learned the curse of the bogey Squirrel told us about and use it on you. Hermione opened her mouth, perhaps to tell Ron exactly how to use the curse of the boogies. But Harry hissed at her to be quiet and beckoned them all forward. They flitted, oh my god. I have no idea, okay. I'm just gonna say to walk around the striped bars of moonlight from the high windows. Every turn, Harry expected to run into Filch or Mr. Norris, but they were lucky. They sped up a staircase to the third floor and tiptoed towards the trophy room. Malfoy and Crabbe weren't there yet. The crystal trophy cases were glimmering when moonlight caught them. Cups, shield, plates, and statues winked silver and gold in the darkness. They edged along the walls, keeping their eyes on the doors at the ends of the rooms. Harry took out his wand in case Malfoy leaped in and started at once. Minutes scared by. He's late, maybe he's chickening out, Ron whispered. Thank you, Yuki Mikaya, for the super chat, and thank you, April, oh my god. Then the noise in the next room made them jump. Harry had only raised his wand when they heard someone speak. And it wasn't Malfoy, and I hate this background music, what the fuck. I swear to god. Let me change the background music, it's so loud. Hello? Sorry guys, give me a second. Okay. This one's so much better. Hello? Okay. Sniff around my suite. They might be lurking in a corner. It was Filch speaking to Mrs. Norris. Horror-struck, Harry waved mildly at the other three to follow him as quickly as possible. They scurried silently towards the door, away from Filch's voice. Neville's robe had barely whipped around the corner when they heard Filch enter the trophy room. They're in here somewhere, they heard him mutter, probably hiding. This way, Harry mouthed to the others, and, petrified, they began to creep down a long gallery full of suites and armor. They could hear Filch getting nearer. Neville suddenly let out a frightened squeak and broke into a run. He tripped, grabbed Ron around the wrist, and the pair of them toppled right into a suite of armor. The clanging and crashing were enough to wake the whole castle. "Run!" Harry yelled, and the four of them sprinted down the gallery, not looking back to see whether Filch was following. They swung around the doorpost and galloped down one corridor, then another, Harry in the lead, without any idea where they were or where they were going. They ripped through a tapestry and found themselves in a hidden passageway, hurtled along it and came out near the Charms classroom, which they knew was miles from the trophy room. "I think we lost him," Harry panted, leaning against the cold wall and wiping off his forehead. Neville was bent doubled, wheezing and spluttering. "I told you," Hermione gasped, clutching at his stitch in her chest. "I told you." "We got to get back to Gryffindor's tower," said Ron, quickly as possible. "Malfoy ticked you," Hermione said to Harry. "You realize that, don't you? He was never going to meet you. Filch knew someone was going to be in the trophy room. Malfoy must tip him off." Harry thought she was probably right, but he wasn't going to tell her that. "Let's go." It was going to be that simple. They hadn't gone more than a dozen places when a doorknob rattled and something came shooting out of a classroom in front of them. It was Peeves. He caught sight of them and gave a squeal of delight. "Shut up, Peeves, please. You guys are thrown out." Peeves cackled. "Wandering around the night, midnight," echoed Fristies. "Now don't you get caughty." "Not if you don't give us away, Peeves, please." "She'll tell Filch I show up," said Peeves in a saintly voice, but his eyes glittered wickedly. "It's for your own good, you know." "Get out of the way!" Number one, taking a swipe at Peeves. It was a big mistake. Students out of bed! Peeves below. Students out of bed! Down the charms corridor. Ducking under Peeves, they ran for their lives, right to the end of the corridor where they slammed into a door, and it was locked. This is it, Ron moaned, as they pushed helpless out the door. We're done for, this is the end. They could hear footsteps, Filch running as fast as he could towards Peeves' shout. Oh, move over, Hermione snarled. She grabbed Harry's wand, tapped the lock, and whispered, Aloha Mara. Okay. And lock, click, and the door swung open. They piled through it, shut. Quickly and pressed their ears against them, listening. Which way did they go, Peeves? Filch was saying. Quick, tell me. Say, please. Don't mess with me, please. Now, where did they go? Shan't say nothing if you don't say please, said Peeves in his annoying singing voice. Alright, please. Nothing. Haha. Told you I wouldn't say nothing. You didn't say please. Ha ha ha. Ah. And they heard the sound of Peeves whooshing away and Filch cursing in rage. He thinks this door is locked, Harry whispered. I think we'll be okay. Get off, Neville. For Neville had been tugging on the sleeve of Harry's bathrobe for the last minute. What? Harry turned around and saw quite clear what. For a moment, he was sure he walked into a nightmare. This was too much. On top of everything that was happening so far, they were in the room, and as he supposed, they were in a corridor. The forbidden corridor on the 3rd floor. And now they knew it was forbidden. They were looking straight into the eyes of a monster dog. A dog filled the whole space between ceiling and floor. It had 3 hands, 3 pairs of rolling mad eyes, 3 noses twitching and quivering in their corridors, 3 drooling mouths, saliva hanging in slippery rows from yellowish fang. It was standing quite still, all 6 eyes staring at them, and Harry knew that the reason they weren't already dead was that their sudden appearance had taken it by surprise. It was quickly getting over them. There was no mistake what those thunderous growls meant. Harry go for the knockdown between Filch and death. He'd take Filch. They fell backward. Harry slammed the door shut, and they ran. They almost flew back down the corridor. Filch must have hurried off to look for them somewhere else, because they didn't see me anywhere, but they hardly cared. All they wanted to do was put as much space as possible between them and that monster. They didn't stop running until they reached the portrait of the fat lady on the 7th floor. Where on earth have you all been? She asked, looking at their fro hanging off their shoulders and their flustered, sweaty face. Never mind that, pig snot, panted Harry, and the portrait swung forward. They scrambled into the common room and collapsed trembling into armchairs. It was a while before any of them said anything. Neville, indeed, looked as if he had never speak again. What do they think they're doing, keeping a thing like that locked up in school? Said Ron. If any dog needs exercise, that one does. Hermione had got both her breath and her bad temper back again. You don't use your eyes, any of you, do you? She snapped. Did you see what it was standing on? The floor, Harry suggested. I wasn't looking at its feet, I was too busy with its hand. No, not the floor, it was standing on a trapdoor. Its top is guarding something. She stood up, glaring at them. I hope you're pleased with yourself. Could have all been killed or expelled. No, if you don't mind, I'm going to bed. Ron stared at her, his mouth open. No, we don't mind, he said. You'd think we'd drag her along, wouldn't you? But Hermione had given Harry something else to think about as he calmed down. Back into bed, the dog was guarding something. What had Hagrid said? Gringotts was the safer place in the world for something you wanted to hide. Except perhaps Hogwarts. It looked as though Harry had found out where the grubby little package from Vault 713 was. And now, Chapter 9 is on. Whee! Alright. But today, I think that is it. That is it for today, everyone. We're gonna continue next time. I'm a little bit tired of reading. My eyes hurt when I read, I don't know why. And yeah, we'll continue next time. Thank you everybody for coming. And good night. I don't want to put the end screen because the end screen is so loud. I think most of people are like half asleep. So I'm not gonna put the end screen today because I don't want to wake them up. So I'm just gonna close it. Good night. Thank you, Ringo, for the super chat.